The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
All right, I'm really excited by our first guest. He's a legendary VC whose popular bets include early investments in Hotmail, Skype, Twitter, and Tesla. In 2014, he began buying up tens of thousands of Bitcoins and seeded money to Coinbase, Robinhood, and Tezos. Now he is getting into NFTs. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Tim Draper, founder of Draper Associates, Draper Fisher Jurvetson, Draper University, Draper Venture Network, and so much more. Hello there, Tim. Thanks for joining us in our
Thanks
favorite
for having
Bitcoin
me on the show,
tie
Christine. Great to, great to be here. And I love what CoinDesk is doing here for the crypto community.
Oh, thank you. We were just talking about inflation, and it's not so transitory at all, according to the Fed. So could that take risk on assets off the table for investors as tapering could accelerate and rate hikes could kick in?
I'm going to jump to one of my theories. When people ask me, well, they say, hey, Bitcoin's really volatile. I say, well, one Bitcoin is always going to be one Bitcoin, and there are only 21 million of them. And all these other currencies are very volatile as they slowly disappear from use. And inflation is just an artifact of all that. These governments are trying to print more money to be more relevant. While we all know that as soon as I can buy my food, clothing, and shelter in Bitcoin, I'm not going to want to hold, and neither will anyone else, any cryptocurrency, any currency that's tied to any fiat political force. So I think this is one of those. And so, yes, we're going to experience a lot of inflation, and they're going to keep printing dollars because that's what they do. When a government is in a tough bind, they print more money, and what that does is it lowers the value of the money that's out there. And so I think we're going into a period where they're printing a lot of dollars, and they're printing a lot of currency from all these other countries.
What do you think about a second term for Jerome Powell, and what will that mean for instance, crypto regulation in the United States? Do you think they're getting it right or wrong?
I think the U.S., like all the other countries of the world, are in a very difficult position where they have to, if you're in government, you're trying to sort of control things. And at the same time, you want your country to be one where there's freedom and innovation and technology and great things happening. And so all of these governments are having this. Are you hearing that sound? I don't know where that sound's coming from, but I'll just keep going. All these governments have a real quandary because if they want to keep everything under control, then they regulate. But then they lose all their entrepreneurs. They lose all this innovation that's going to come from this, and all that economic development, all those jobs are going to go somewhere else where there's a government that is more free. Freedom and trust are where the entrepreneurs, where the people, where the money, and where the businesses go. And freedom and trust will continue to be that. And as we are more mobile as humans, we're going to choose the countries that are the least regulatory because we, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the money, the people of the world, the businesses of the world, we're going to choose those countries that allow more freedoms. And the countries that have higher regulations, they do it at their own peril.
Tim, so excited to have you here. Could you talk a little bit specifically about the U.S. and what they're doing on the regulatory front vis-a-vis crypto, in particular, what you think they're doing wrong?
Actually, I think the U.S. has left sort of a gray cloud in the sky. It's not a black cloud. It's not a white cloud. It's a gray cloud in the sky regulatorily. And maybe that's part of the beauty of the U.S. is that it moves very slowly. And it allows things to happen. I mean, if we had regulated the internet back in 1992 in the US, we would have lost all that economic value, all those jobs, all those people, all those businesses would have gone somewhere else to a place that was less regulatory. And I think, you know, you see the politicians grandstand and some of the bureaucrats grandstand. But at the same time, I think they realize that they need to have a very light touch, if any touch, so that they can encourage people to be innovators and encourage people to come to the U.S. if they want to be entrepreneurs or innovators. And I think that is the quandary that these guys are going through, and it's a difficult situation for them. I actually believe that we are moving toward a decentralized world. We're moving toward a world that is more open and global. But all this nationalism and border control and trade wars, those are all happening as kind of the last roar of the dying lion. I look at that as like the dying lion is making its last hurrah and trying to say, no, we're relevant, we're important. At the same time, the rest of the world is saying, hey, look, we got global trade. We're going to go wherever we feel that there's enough freedom and trust that can take us. And those countries are going to thrive. And you're seeing it happen. So, yeah, I think the U.S. has a very difficult situation.
So the U.S. is a dying lion in this metaphor?
Well, the regulators who are trying to control the population, trying to keep strong borders, trying to keep us in trade wars, in isolating us. I think those are the dying lions. The ones that are encouraging innovation, encouraging freedom, that are trusting and trustworthy and trusted. Those are the leaders that we want moving into this new world. And I think we're going through an anthropological change. And over the next 20 years, I think the borders are going to be less and less relevant. And what's going to be relevant is this new decentralized world. And it's going to be awesome. And it's going to create more and more jobs for more and more people. It's going to create a better life for everyone around us. The fact that it's so frictionless means that the entire world will become wealthier because, as we all know, the more friction in a currency, the less wealthy a society, and the less friction in an economy, the wealthier the society. And the more trusted the more trusted a country is, the richer it is. So Singapore used to be very untrusted and untrustworthy, and they were the poorest country in the world, and now they're one of the richest because Lee Kuan Yew started to build trust into that system. And they were trusting and trustworthy. And then freedom's very important. I mean, America was all built on freedom. And those the biggest argument for freedom, there are plenty of arguments for freedom, but the biggest argument for freedom is Korea. They drew a line between North and South Korea, and in North Korea, they said, we're going to have government controls, we're going to regulate everybody, we're going to tell everybody what to do. We are going to be Marxist, Leninist, socialist, communist system. And then in South Korea, they said, we're going to be a capitalist system, we're going to be a democracy, we're going to be free trade, we're going to be open border. Well, now, 70 years later, those borders have hardly been crossed. And South Korea makes 460 times the income that North Korea makes. And the average South Korean is 4 inches taller than the average North Korean. So, hey, socialism doesn't work. Freedom works. Freedom and trust work. And what is Bitcoin? Freedom and trust. It's a currency that is free to be used anywhere in the world. and it's trustworthy. It's you don't need to rely on some political force that can swing one way or another. You know there are only 21 million of them. You know that it's all built into software. It's clearly the strongest of the cryptocurrencies, and it's going to be it's going to lead us into a new anthropological age, and
Tim, I just want to jump in there. You
exciting.
Talk about
That's what got me going.
And
That's what got me going. After the internet, that was the thing that really got me going on the thing. Go ahead. What was your question?
One of your big investments was Twitter. And there was just a big announcement by Jack Dorsey, the CEO there. He talked about, resigning, moving the company away from its founding and founders. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
He's an amazing guy. Jack Dorsey's a genius. He's done some extraordinary things. He's achieved so much. Twitter's such an amazing success. Square is such an amazing success. I think it's he maybe felt like, hey, I've done this. I want to kind of see the world again, and then start over and see what else I can do with the world. We need more people like Jack Dorsey out there.
So, Tim, speaking of, getting back to Marxist-Leninism, California, you, of course, wanted to break it up into a bunch of. You wanted to break it up into a bunch of states to punish the rest of this country, I'm sure, but
no, I wasn't trying to punish anybody. I was trying to. I was trying to make the state accountable, because I mean, when the unions started to negotiate it with the state. Back in 1976, California was at the best in education and number one as the place to do business. And since that's happened, California has gone from first to 47th in education and first to 50th, as from the best to the absolute worst state to do business in that, whatever that period of time is, from 1976 to now.
So along those lines,
so clearly we need to do something. Something has to happen here, and the high regulation. There's a high regulation state. It's a high tax state. It's I would say probably the most socialist of the states of the U.S., and it's clearly losing its edge. We've got the best weather. But beyond that, I thought by breaking the state into three pieces, it would make all three of those states accountable to the people, because they could move from one to another if they felt like one state was getting too ridiculous. Oh. And now think of all the jobs they just lost. They just lost Elon. They lost 100,000 jobs right there. And some politician said, "Oh, screw Elon," or something. And I thought, what are you thinking? You want Elon in your state. You want Oracle in your state. You want HP in your state, and you have driven them out. So we really need to do something.
If you look at states like Florida, you look at Miami trying to attract crypto investments. You look at Wyoming trying to attract crypto investments. Why should you, let alone any of your investments, stay in California? Why not move already and move with your feet, move with your dollars out of California? So what? The weather is nice. You can always visit it on vacation. But why not have? What's the reason to stay in California at this point, other than you like Gavin Newsom?
Don't think I haven't thought about that. I'm right on the edge, but hey, my base is here. My friends are here. It is a very difficult thing to uproot and move. And for all of those businesses to do that, it must mean that there is a serious problem with California and how it is not any longer attracting businesses. I think this is we're going to go through a very difficult time here in California. And I think it's because we're losing our businesses, and we're losing our businesses because, somehow the unions have taken over California, and they're doing, and they're government unions. Somehow we're allowing our governments to unionize and then pay, and then they decide on the politicians' salaries and and they pay the politicians who decide on their salaries. That seems a little too incestuous.
Just to get back, to pivot back to crypto for a moment, just because I'm sure a lot of people want to hear your view. So your price prediction on Bitcoin, I believe, is 250,000 by the end of next year, right? I don't know. Do you have a price prediction for Ether? And if you do, I'd love to hear it.
Oh no, I should do that. Oh my gosh!
Let's do it right now. Let's go for it.
I'm going to put that into the calculator, and the next time you ask, I'll probably have a price for ETH.
What about a ballpark? Can you just give us something like anything? I think what.
No, I'd have to think about it. Because I've been so dead on with my Bitcoin predictions. I want to make sure I go through the whole process to get there.
Higher than 7,000 at least?
Hey, I'm not going to make a prediction right now. I will stick by my prediction. What's that?
We've seen with meme coins, and are you supportive or not?
And I love all that. I love all these coins that are percolating up. I think it's a wonderful thing, because think of all the innovation that is happening in all these coins. I mean, Tezos is creating a whole new governance structure.
Well, what about things like Sheen
Aragon's
and
creating
Doge,
a whole
which
new
are basically made on
system.
jokes?
Yeah. Hey, we got to have a sense of humor, right? I think it's all really very exciting, and yeah, you're going to see some of these tokens fall when things get very, when the optimism that's going on now turns to pessimism, and that does come and go and come and go. But and you're going to see some of the coins just go to nothing. But and that's when
what can you tell us about your journey
flight to quality, which would be Bitcoin. Yeah.
Tim, what can you tell us about your journey into NFTs and how long? I understand you're starting to invest in them. So if so, what are some of your big investments?
We've got a great investment in unstoppable domains. We're really excited about this. What they've done is they've created free speech for the world, because you can have your own site. They can't stop it. So, all this, the muting of society and the whatever they call it, the canceling of people, that can't happen. And now you can get your own unstoppable domain. You can be, Christine or Ellie or Lawrence.crypto, and you can have that be your wallet, and it's your identity, and it's your NFTs, and it's where you say whatever you want to say. You could be in China and say free Tibet. You can be in Syria and say, I don't like my government. And that can be really extraordinary. I think free speech for the world is going to be a major breakthrough. And these guys are early. We bet on a game company before. We were very early in NFTs. Unfortunately, we missed OpenSea and we missed a few of the others. My son was an investor in Nifty Gateway, but they sold that pretty quickly to the Gemini guys. Yep.
So, Tim, a couple of things. First of all, what do you think is going to come after NFTs? And second of all, when investing in some of these companies, what are you looking for with the team? I mean, I know you've said in the past that when you invest in an alternative platform or any kind of other crypto besides, let's say, the Bitcoins and Ethers of the world, that you're looking at the team behind the platform. So what exactly are you looking for? And also what comes after, what's coming next?
You know, I think it's an X factor, but it's what is inside their heart. How important is this to them? And if they're doing it just for the money, it's not enough, because when things get tough, then they fly away. So it's got to be something that means something to them. And that's one of the things that I look for. And then answering your first question, I think NFTs have a long way to go. I mean, the art and the games and the music and those kinds of things are those are the early adopter parts of NFTs. But NFTs are going to be your credentials, your license, your diplomas, your your collections, your in fact,
real estate,
your money,
property.
Your real estate, your so many things. Yeah, we have a great investment in a woman who runs Proppy, and she's going to in effect make title NFTs, and I think this is a new way for us to think about ownership, and it's also going to tie it to identity. So it's going to be tougher for the thieves and the hackers to try to
Tim,
penetrate.
There's a lot of talk about, all this decentralization, owning your identity, self-sovereignty, but it sounds like the same conversation we had during the early internet. But what happened was a couple of companies ended up owning everyone's data and influencing socioeconomic events, politics. Is that, as we transition from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, is that also a danger?
It's fun that you bring that up, because this is sort of a pendulum. It swings back and forth between central control and freedom. And it swings that way in politics. It swings that way in business. Fortunately, we're swinging back to the freedom point of view.
So what about Facebook? Something like Facebook
and so
entering
we're going to have
the Metaverse.
We're going to have a lot of people who own their own data. They're going to have their own identity. And that is going to be great, because that will.
So what about something like Facebook and Web 2 incumbent moving into Web 3?
Hang on. I think there's going to be a premium for honesty in this new world. And I think that honesty and trust are going to be a really high value items going forward. And I think it's going to be more difficult for people to steal your identity and whatever, because you're going to control it. Anyway, what was your question? I'm sorry.
Well, what about things like Facebook, a huge tech giant in Web 2.0? They're moving into the metaverse. These incumbents don't want to lose their share of the internet, which is about, some figures say 60% with Meta's ownership over Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. So they don't want to lose that control. Yeah. So as they move into Web 3, how do you see that panning out?
I think the consumer will drive this, and the consumer will say, oh, no, I want an unstoppable domain, because I will then control my data. And Unstoppable is growing very quickly, and eventually I think that will overtake Facebook. Because Facebook, it's very difficult for a company that, like Facebook, who starts out with freedom, starts out with free speech, and then starts going to control, where they're trying to tell everybody what they're supposed to think. I think people will respond by moving off Facebook and moving to Unstoppable and other places that are more free and open and transparent and global and decentralized. And it's very tough for companies to, when they're on a path, to go back and try to, like, if they've moved to centralization, it's tough for them to move back to decentralization. I know Jack Dorsey started Twitter because he loved free speech. That was why he started Twitter. He wanted more free speech, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, people are getting censured.
So, Tim, we're seeing a lot of pretty lofty valuations on a lot of these, on a lot of companies, be it in the metaverse or in NFTs. How do you think it's all going to play? And which of your investments do you think are kind of under the radar that you think will probably take off in the next year that people aren't paying enough attention to?
Well, yeah, I think. What was the first part of that question?
So we're seeing a lot of high valuations on things in the NFT space and in the metaverse. So where do you think it all goes?
You know, it's really fun because what happens is with a new industry like that, and it happened with Bitcoin, and it happened with the internet, and it happened with computers. They start and they go up, and then they're discovered, and everybody thinks it's the greatest thing in the world, and it gets this hype monster going, and then it falls because the promise of it wasn't fulfilled day one. But then the engineers are doing all their work, and slowly but surely, 2 years later, all of a sudden it's better than anybody ever imagined, and it just goes straight up. I think that's true. That is definitely true with Bitcoin. It got hyped up in 2017. It came crashing down, and now it's more than fulfilling anybody's vision of what it could be. And the same thing happened with the internet. It went way up. There's this big hype monster. Then it came crashing down, and they said, "Oh, why would anybody put their credit card on Amazon and whatever?" And then it came roaring back, way bigger. It's trillions and trillions of dollars now, way bigger than anybody imagined back then. And I think that same thing's going to probably happen with NFTs. It's happened with most of the great industries of the world, and so it's going to go in that direction. Any of our companies that look incredibly promising, yeah, I would say OpenNode. Because they're the vehicle that El Salvador is using so that McDonald's and Starbucks can use Bitcoin, can accept Bitcoin, and they do it on a level 2 chain, and it just works, and it's super fast, and it's really easy, and so retailers are going to pull that in, and once a retailer realizes that their bottom line can be doubled, because they don't have to pay the banks 2.5% to 4% every time somebody swipes a credit card, they're all going to accept Bitcoin, and they'll do it on OpenNode. So I'd say that one is still under the radar and looks like it's starting to just bubble up.
Tim, just to turn kind of on the flip side of this, there's so much hype, there's so much froth in the crypto market. Any projects, any coins, any just kind of areas of this industry that you would warn investors to stay away from?
I would focus. I would focus on the tokens that have a purpose, like a new purpose and a world that you want. I think that is a really important thing. And then look on GitHub and figure out how many engineers are focused on that. And if it's a growing number, it's usually a good sign. I would not jump into the one that is the hyped monster of the day, because I think those will fall just as quickly as they rise. So it's usually the ones that are just like one brick at a time. They're building something of great value, one brick at a time.
So, Tim, we were talking earlier in the discussion about the Fed and money printing out of thin air. What's your thoughts about stablecoins?
I think they're a great bridge to Bitcoin. I think you want to have that. I think they're, I own some Maker. I think that it's a nice bridge, but it's only half of the benefits that can be used in crypto. It's the benefit of being easy to move around, frictionless, and perfect records, but it doesn't have the decentralization. It's not global.
Any
and
concerns?
So it doesn't have a full feature set. You know, when Aurora coin came out, that was the first country, Iceland was the first country to say, hey, we're going to have a cryptocurrency. And when it came out, I thought, oh, this is fantastic. They've recognized the importance of this new form of currency. And then they said, oh, it's only going to be accepted in Iceland. And I thought, what? You missed the whole point. And sure, you know, the Chinese yuan and if any of these U.S. things tied to the U.S. dollar are going to be used in a lot of interesting ways, but they're just like the other political fiat currencies in the way that they're tied to the value of those currencies, and the value of those currencies is going down because of inflation.
Any concern about the assets that back them, though? I mean, do you think that that's the fact that so many of them are opaque when it comes to what's backing these stable coins? Do you think that's going to be a concern for the crypto markets in general, or should just be, well, caveat emptor? And
well, the one I'm the most familiar with is Maker, and the way they back their stablecoin is through, in effect, an insurance program. That's the Maker DAO. The DAI is the stable coin, and Maker is the insurance company. And the insurance company, if they're if ETH drops in half, Maker just prints more Maker, and that means that then Maker's worth less. But over time, Maker's going to continue up, because it operates as an insurance program. So I think that's kind of a good way for these currencies to be backed, and they're probably more stable than the full faith and credit of some country.
Tim, we got to wrap it there, but I just want to ask one final question. You know, we talk about and your investments mostly have been huge ballpark winners out of the ballpark. But there have been a couple of lemons, and
we've had a lot of
there have been a couple of lemons. Well, I mean, Theranos, whose founder, Elizabeth Holmes, is now in a very high-profile trial for fraud charges. Do you still think that was a good investment, or where do you think things went wrong, or what would you have done differently?
Yeah, I'm going to let the wheels of justice turn. I'll talk about that after the trial.